So, good morning. We're pleased to welcome you at the International Expert Discussion for Closing the Gap, Enhancing the Capacities of Municipalities to Prepare, Implement and Finance Investment Projects that Boost Economic and Social Growth. Today, we're going to have Piotr, the Senior Lecturer at the Warsaw University, the main principal advisor for the Ministry of Funds and Regional Policy of Poland, and Igor Korchowy, the Deputy Minister for the European Union Integration Ministry for the Communities and Territories Development of Ukraine. I'm pleased to welcome our speakers here.
Hello, good morning. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, and I would like to have the first question to Piotr. Piotr, can you share the Polish experience, how the Polish communities were able to develop high-quality infrastructure projects?
Okay, I hope everybody can hear me. First of all, I would like to start from very old times and say some words about how everything started. And in fact, in Poland, after 1989, we saw this, let's say, decentralization issue and creation of the independent self-governments as a core of all changes which were introduced at that time. So this centralization was seen as a way for bringing more democracy, for empowering people. That's obvious, but also as a way of spreading democracy and, of course, also a part of modernization of the state. And at the very beginning, of course, it was not easy because the self-governments were created already in 1990, but their administrative capacity to deal with all those challenges was very, very limited. Please, can I ask to show next slides, maybe? Next slide, please. Maybe one more. Next slide, please. Okay, so now, okay, I started that this self-government capacity was not enough, but just at the very beginning, and it has grown gradually. Of course, we are talking about the period of over 30 years. But the situation now is that the self-government now are really very stable element of democracy, I can say. To some extent, even the biggest self-governments like big cities and regions, województwa, they are also seen as the competitors of the state. Their political power is quite high, and also economic strength, thanks to their ability to prepare and to create projects and implement projects and to support economic growth. Of course, they are also seen as a very important agents of let's say delivery of public policies. A lot of public money is going through self-governments. And when we talk about investment done, public investment, the share of self-governments is more than 50% in total public spendings. Of course, the situation of self-governments is not equal. We have still small self-governments which are struggling to survive, which don't have enough money and don't have also enough capacity to prepare and to implement their development projects. And I will come back to this in a moment. Please, next slide. Yeah. Okay. Next one, please. Okay, if we would look at the factors which have helped to change the situation, this not very good situation at the beginning of 90s in 20th century, and the situation we have now, in which self-governments are playing very important economic and political role, I would name four such factors. So first is a very early and brave decision about decentralization that was done quite early in this transformation process, because as I said, we saw this decentralization not just as a sharing of power, but rather as a building real agents for spreading democracy and economic power. And I think it helped because there is already, as I said, 30 years of operations of those self-governments, and this early decision on giving them enough power, enough financial resources, and also what is also very important, the proper legal framework has built their capacity and their today's strength. Also, I would like to underline that this legal issue, legal independence of the self-government is quite important. We are talking about the self-governments which have legal status, legal possibility to act as a legal person, and because it makes these self-governments good partners for banks, for international organizations, for the private sector. At the end, they can be trusted, they can be responsible. That is why they are a reliable partner, because they offer to pay their debts in case that something is not going well, and they can and that is why they are good customers of the banking system. Another factor which must be mentioned in here is also the big number, let's say, a good system of supporting institutions. We have developed this system in 90s, in 20th century, with the help of European Union. That was this pre-accession period. Then, of course, thanks to money and to procedures coming from the European Union, the system was strengthened. And now we have a mixture of different institutions, support institutions, to specializing in different areas of let's say, responsibilities of self-governments, ranging from innovation, from business support, to social issues, to support in very basic infrastructural needs. And this system is really huge. I counted a number of such institutions, and we can claim that we have at least 120 business support institutions, more than 100 institutions external to self-governments dealing with social issues. We have also, let's say, around 7 to 8 institutions at national level which deals with different aspects of self-governmental, let's say, investment. And depending on what we are talking about, there are institutions specializing in SME support, in developing social skills, in helping in developing social skills, but also in helping to prepare big infrastructural projects, which is very also important. And of course, Europeization is also the big factor in this. Thanks to this, we learned European procedures. We introduced European law. Thanks to this, the level for corruption, for misconduct, for not transparent, let's say, organization of calls for projects, or then the process of tendering is much more limited. It's still happening, some problems with that, but thanks to this, let's say, Europeization, I would call it, of our procedures, of our internal law related to the investment. Now, such cases, some problem cases, are very, very rare. Please, next slide. And then just one additional remark is about bigger municipalities, because I mentioned 2 minutes ago about big number of different support institutions, but of course those big cities, those rich municipalities, they can they can act on their own, and they are rather act as a business partner. So they don't need specific support. They can pay for this. They can, because they are reliable partners, so they cooperate on equal grants with banking system, with international organizations. However, of course, I I would like to say that always it's good to have also multi-governance system in which there is not only big cities, they are just in the partners which are talking to all those institutions, but when they are backed or they are act together with the government, with other self-governments like regions, it's very important, this cooperation between our regional level and the level of municipalities. And also, what is important, the big cities have capacity to cooperate with private sector and with NGOs, which is also very important when we are talking about, for example, now Green Deal or social things. Okay, can I ask for another slide? But still, we have some problems in case of small municipalities. They are still lacking capacity and financial resources, for example, to pay in the market for good development projects. And they are also not big enough to be reliable or good partner for banking system. So in this case, the government supports those municipalities with some instruments. Partially, this is financed by the European Union. We have, for example, such like, I don't have enough time to tell you the very detailed, give you detailed information on that, but there are, for example, last initiative of my ministry. This is advisory center for municipalities, which allows them to build strategies and then define their development projects with the support of experts. And then we are looking together for financing of those ideas in through European funds or through banking system. We have also special budgetary lines with some specific selection criteria for those small municipalities. And they just in order to help them in grabbing, in getting to finance, but also to formulate projects. We did now very popular is in Poland to prepare revitalization plans, but this is quite complicated process. And those municipalities, they can get some support. They can get some support in preparing projects fitting into those revitalization plans, but also in exchanging between themselves the most bright ideas. Let's put it this way. And please, I would like. I'm just going to the end. Please show the last slide. Yes, this is not the last one, but yes, this is what I already said. So maybe on this one, just to summarize, because the time is running, what are the factors for success of programming and implementing good municipal projects? Just to summarize, of course, strong legal basis of self-government. I think this is the crucial, and I think Poland, but also other countries, the situation in Poland and in other countries shows that earlier you choose this path to make the legal stability in the context of the situation of self-governments, then is better. Then, of course, financial sources, but I don't want always to point out that we are having European money. That's true. This is quite a big source of money. But what is the most important is good decentralization of financial system in which self-governments should have their own share of stable money, and for those smaller municipalities, of course, some equalization mechanisms are also needed. Then the third factor is this institutional support system for developing administrative capacity. And I mentioned only some few examples. These are just support programs, delivery of administrative capacity, expanding administrative capacity at local level, given or offered by European funds, by central government, or also at regional level by regions themselves. They also organize exchange between municipalities in which they can learn from each other. And the last one, I think it's also very important to build effective cooperation systems. So this is building trust between different levels of the government. As I'm hearing also in Ukraine, you are trying to do so, but it's very important that the government is not fighting, but is rather cooperating with self-governments. It's listening to self-governments and then accordingly building the legal system, but also supports directly and in day-to-day life when, for example, talking to international corporations, where to settle. Let's say this is very important. This cooperation. Okay, I think I can stop here, and thank you very much.
Дякую, пане Пьотре, за цю цікаву презентацію і дякую за те, що підкреслили, що децентралізація.
So thank you, Piotr. Thank you for this wonderful presentation. Thank you for underlining that decentralization is a basis for a strong democracy, and thank you for underlining this important role of cooperation and trust to be built between various power bodies and the society, of course. So, Ihar, please tell us how the ministry does develop communities and how it helps, how our communities are supported, because we are at the very beginning of this way and Poland is already there, let's say. So dear colleagues, dear partners, I'd like to get my presentation as well on the screen. First of all, I'd like to express my gratitude for the invitation, express my gratitude to Lead Europe and all our partners, and for us, as for the state power bodies, it's really important to work with the municipalities, of course, to cooperate, to find the ways of development which do allow us to build resilient and sustainable development. So, capacity issue, well, this is basically the background for our work. When we do talk about work with international financial institutions, we need to have this general image in our head. So when you pick the puzzles, you know, the puzzle parts, when you try to make one picture, let's say you do have a situation when the IFI is ready to give a resource to support your projects and actually to improve our lives, to promote the improvement of the municipal conditions, making people's lives better. And we have the stakeholders who want to take the resources. So local governance bodies, let's say the state power bodies again, municipalities and city councils, and we have some puzzle missing between them, something that we lack, when we just need to combine those who want to take with those who can give, those who are ready to give. So we see our role in this image as this missing puzzle. We as the ministry, we try to fill the gap in this puzzle and try to actually become a bridge between the money provided by the IFI and the goals of the municipalities which they want to achieve with the money, to use it at the maximum level and to get this win-win balance eventually for the stakeholders and for the grantors. As far as I understand, there's no presentation. Oh, it's there. Okay, great. Super great. So I'd like to have the second slide, please. Thank you. So, as I mentioned already, so this is one of our priorities, is to create additional financial tools for comprehensive community development, for communities to diversify their own capacity, financial capacity, in order to implement specific projects at local level. So, please. Okay, one of the biggest partners that our ministry works with is EIB. We do truly appreciate our cooperation. We are so grateful to our colleagues from EIB for the programs which are currently implemented, for the programs that we have, and especially for those projects and programs we are preparing for implementation in particular. One of the biggest projects that we have on the agenda today is a huge program on thermal modernization of the public premises, 300 million euros. Last year we signed the agreement for that amount, and it's successfully ratified in the Parliament in 2021. Starting from 2022, we will actually select the applications, project applications, to fund certain local projects. Within this program, we plan to implement approximately 1,000. We plan to implement the project for 1,000 of premises and facilities like kindergartens, hospitals, schools, PHC stations. First of all, we'll improve the service provision infrastructure. We will minimize the consumption of energy resources, and in general, we will try to tackle this, as we call it, energy poverty concept. Of course, we do appreciate the EIB support in the process of future projects and programs modeling. The big project on outdoor lighting, so 150 million euros approximately. That is the amount of funding. And what is the thing of the project? Why it's so special? It gives you can see how much you actually save locally when you replace the lighting equipment, when you've installed the energy saving technologies. You can see it instantly what the effect is. And what we plan to have is to actually get the water sanitation project, including the drainage infrastructure improving, and we now work with transformation of coal regions. We have 25 approximately communities from 5 regions which fall under, let's say, which fall under this classification of monofunctional towns. They live fully by the support of the mines, and this transformation program is prepared currently by our ministry together with our state bodies and agencies, and we do hope that within the first 6 months of 2022 we'll adopt it. In a parallel line, we've already started the negotiations with EIB regarding the need to support such municipalities. Therefore, we already approach the potential modeling of this future program. Please give the presentation right now. The next slide, if you may. So, another big financial tool that was launched by the government is the NIDA Business Finance Program, which allows to take, let's say, a 10-year loan. So, for big infrastructure projects. Again, when it comes to heating, water supply, drainage and sanitation, the Ministry of Regional Development has already launched a primary selection of projects. We have now 13 of them triaged, and these projects are being considered by our colleagues and thoroughly analyzed, colleagues from Danida, and I do think that they will definitely get a positive answer, these projects, and it's really cool initiative because it definitely allows us, almost with no interest rate, to take a loan for to implement this project to fully replace the heating equipment, modernize the water supply systems. Therefore, we are so proud of that, and we are so happy that we launched this program. This is definitely one of those important tools that the Ministry of Regional Development, together with international partners, create for the municipalities. The next slide, please, and a little bit back, please. Yeah. And in 2021, we started actively cooperating with KfW, German financial institution. 25 million euro agreement is signed for 2 municipalities, Zhytomyr and Zaporizhia. And 80 projects on thermal modernization for public facilities and premises, schools, kindergartens, PHC stations and hospitals, mostly the educational establishments, and it will allow us to substantially save the resources that we do use to pay for energy services provision and for energy supply, for heating and electricity. It's very important because we clearly see that the state is promoting the improvement of service provision conditions. The state is actually doing a lot to tackle the energy poverty and to protect the national energy security, to improve our security level. So we also plan to sign another project together with our German colleagues by the end of this year. So the second phase for Chernivtsi city, modernization for the water supply system and the heating system. And I was listening carefully to my colleague from Poland, and I do agree completely. In Ukraine, we have a similar situation like in Poland. So we have big municipalities, big cities with more than 500,000 inhabitants. These already do have more or less successful cases of cooperation with IFIs. For example, in Kiev, globally, it's actively cooperating with the EIB, and EBRD, and we have specific agreements on loans with French Republic, like Vodocanal. We plan to sign another agreement with EIB and green transport. So for big municipalities, the issue of cooperation with IFIs, it's not that painful when it comes to capacity, because they do have this capacity, administrative and financial capacity. But we have another problem with small and mid-sized municipalities. Of course, we need to work a lot on that to increase their capacity. First of all, to design these project applications, to, let's say, to try to forecast how this project will influence the situation and try and just to understand how we, of course, will cover the loans, because we speak about low interest rates. But of course, we need to return that. We need to return that amount, and it requires certain financial capacity from the municipality, and of course, this long-term financial planning, and such tools, of course, should be implemented. And people locally, they should be fully aware of how to use the tools. Therefore, we do design right now the separate program to support the municipalities. And upon the occasion, I'd like Mr. Piotr, after this event, of course, please, Mr. Piotr, if it's possible to share some contacts and maybe just to actually establish some connections with this Center on Administrative Cooperation or Improvement, what you mentioned. This is all for me, you know. Thank you so much, Mr. Kurchovi. Thank you so much for the presentation. And many people now understand that ministry is doing some very useful things, trying to put together at one table small Ukrainian communities and towns together with IFIs. I have a question. I think Piotr mentioned one important thing. Municipalities and Polish municipalities and communities are reliable and good partners for business. But I would like you, Mr. Ihar, to comment on how does the ministry, let's say not you personally, but the ministry, develop this cooperation between communities and business? And then I'd like Piotr also to tell us about that. How initially you've built this trust between business and communities as reliable business partners. Thank you for the question, Ilona. So we create the conditions to involve stakeholders locally at maximum level. Our task is not just to bring business and communities together. Cooperating with business, it's the task for communities directly, and we have to create the conditions, the environment, to get the tools for proper interaction. Let's say when we talk about work with IFIs, of course we do stimulate by involving such investment resources. We stimulate the development of Ukrainian business and of course the foreign business. Definitely we do have, let's say, projects when municipalities with credit money, these do fund some projects like on biogas use, implemented by Italian or Slovenian companies. So we have the results. Thank you, Piotr. Would you like to respond to Igor's words and maybe tell us how exactly from the very beginning of the decentralization reform, how did the business start understanding and realizing that municipalities can be a good partner? What was the central government doing for it? What were the efforts?
Okay, thank you very much. First of all, let me say that I will be more than happy to share all possible contacts with not just only this instrument I mentioned, specific instruments, because also there is a lot of other initiatives going on. And what is really important, and this shows our approach, that for example, we think that this advisory center for these small, let's say, communities, municipalities, is effective because also we cooperate to implement this project with the so-called Związek Miast Polskich. So this is the Association of Polish Towns or Cities, and they are directly working with us to help those cities. So we don't act only as a government, but we also have our, let's say, self-governmental partner association of cities, which is doing this with us. So I will be happy to share. As just trying to respond to your question, I'm afraid I have to repeat some already mentioned features or issues. But maybe let's say underline that the first what is the really important to build this trust between self-governments and the business community is to have enough, let's say, resources, but in terms of and legal framework. So we have like two things which are preconditions. So legal framework and then financial means, which can be regarded also by business partner as a something which gives a possibility to cooperate and building trust. So they are preconditions, but also there are some other factors. I didn't mention, for example, that of course our self-governments are also very much involved in politics. So it means that they are, and this is what we want, because this is exactly what is about democracy. So in fact, if you have a strong leader, local leader, It is, and with full of ideas. He is also very, very effective and very active to talk to all people around, including business sector. So I think such leaders, and if you allow them to grow, to be really politically recognizable, they can act on their behalf of their communities and not just waiting for what the government is bringing. So they can act on their own. They can organize some actions, promotional actions. They can be directly partner of the businesses, and you have hundreds of such cases, of such examples in Poland, in which that was not government to initiate investment. That was the self-government, thanks to their leaders, thanks to their administrative capacity, and so on. And also, what is I think important, the last thing I would like to also to maybe to underline is that this cooperation with the government and other let's say sources is very important, and this is also what helps the private sector to understand that those actions which are undertaken by self-governments are also in a broader strategy, in a broader strategic sense, supported by the government. So the policy towards decentralization, towards activities of self-government at national level is favorable. So it is also, I think, very important.
Дуже дякую. І пане Ігоре, чи є у вас якісь заключні ремарки щодо нашої зустрічі?
Thank you so much, Piotr. And Igor, do you have any concluding remarks? Thank you. I just want to reflect again on what Piotr mentioned. In our case, government is not a primary link in investment process. Municipality is the primary link. The community itself is a stimulus, an impetus to actually work with loans and investments. We as a ministry, we try for the community to create all necessary environment, all necessary conditions, and to expand the opportunities to get the resources, financial resources, as possible, as much as possible. We are only we are a stakeholder, but we do not generate investment just, to grab it and keep it. Of course, what is in the center? The community, their needs, and those potential benefits that community and its inhabitants will get from the project implementation. What Piotr mentioned, of course, in our case, we work on constant improvement of the legislative framework, or legal framework as we call it. It's also an important tool when you have this clear guideline, or the game rules, when these do not constantly change, but we have certain time and period, let's say, even to effectively work. For me, that's all. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, the experts, for this truly wonderful discussion. And we do hope that it managed to inspire so many people, especially the community leaders, to become active and initiative and motivated to think about new projects and ideas to actually make the lives of your communities better. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you. Saying goodbye to you. Thank you, Ilona. Thank you, Piotr. Thank you, Igor. So we had a little bit of Polish experience today, and we had some information about ambitions of Ukrainian communities, and we do have a couple of minutes before the next session starts. The next session will be dedicated to local business development at 11:15 Kyiv time, so please use the same link and don't change the channel. Thank you.